Welcome in to My Two Bits. This is First Bites. We are looking at the rapid reaction of our Florida Gators versus the first 4 weeks of this season tonight. I am your host, Mr. Randy, along with my other host, Ben. Ben, how are you feeling, my man?
Man, I like how you said that. The first four weeks was quite the opponent, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
We were definitely our own worst enemy in a lot of different ways. So I think that's a good way to approach it. So yeah, doing okay, feeling all right.
I'm glad to hear that. I was expecting a little bit more, but good, good. um, but anyways, to that end, with First Bites, we're keeping it concise, nice and simple for you all. So like our regular show and our focus on factual analysis and all things Florida Gator football. Yes, we're going to make it as accurate as we possibly can, citing our sources whenever we use them. All statistical data coming from ESPN and tonight especially NCAAstat.com. Now, let's get into our modified agenda for this episode. Since we're 4 weeks into the season, we will be discussing the following things that have gone well, if you can believe it. Yes, things have gone well. Things that have gone wrong, and our impact or standout player thus far. All right, let's get into it. Enough talk. Ben, start us off with things that have gone well after 4 weeks.
All right, yeah. So no surprise here, probably with how we've been talking about things. This is going to be definitely on the defensive side of the ball for me, right? With things that have gone well. A couple of stats to start off here. Scoring defense, 14.25 points per game. Now, you won't find that stat anywhere because most sites are going to use the total points allowed. But I did defensive points allowed, taking off that touchdown that we gave up against LSU on the pick six, right? So actual points allowed is
Oh, nice.
14.25 by the defense, right? Yeah, so that would be tied for 22nd in the country if we were actually looking at what the defense gave up there. Passing yards per game is 173, which is good for 33rd in the country. Rushing yards per game, a little worse, 111.3, 46 in the country, coming off obviously that Miami performance drove that up a little bit. And then total yards per game, 284.3, which is 31st in the country. So all those metrics right around that 30th mark, give or take a little bit, with the scoring obviously being the best at 22nd, which is, kind of what we talked about, the need for having that, in the top 30. Defense has been everything we could ask for, honestly, aside from a few minor things that we have discussed and then seen addressed. Again, as I mentioned last episode, what a concept. Hats off to Ron Roberts and the entire staff here. Outstanding job, especially early on, which is something that we have struggled with this coaching staff and with this regime, right? Getting it done right early has been a problem, right? We've had to tweak and see actual game film and have to make adjustments to get things right because there were glaring gaps and holes previously in past seasons. Kind of like what's going on with the offense, except much more extreme. Um, we have not seen that so far on defense. It's been rock solid. It's been sound. It's been really good in almost every phase. The only area of complaint I would have in terms of player performance would be at the safety level, which we had a question mark at, and really that hasn't been anything awful. It's just been not excellent. And then otherwise, really everything's been pretty good, even despite some key injuries, as we talked about. It's really been a pretty impressive performance from the defense, and it's just a shame that we've wasted it on the other side of the ball. So overall, definitely hats off to the D. That's my point for what went well. What you got?
Great points. And hey, thank you as well for taking out the pick six. I think that makes a big difference when you look at the overall defense and getting a more true number, right?
Yeah,
Not that we have an issue with stats nowadays. And the accuracy of the recording of said stats.
indeed.
Um, you know what? This defense clearly has done a lot of things well. And so when you talk about things that have gone well, a lot of people would say the only thing that went well was game one, as far as what we did and what we were supposed to do, right? You win the games you're supposed to win. You go and do your job. We had an offer when it comes to LIU. Well, that was kind of to be expected, right? But I couldn't agree with you more. I have the defensive side of the ball as well. I have a couple points here, made different for yours, but at the end of the day, this defense carried over a lot of momentum from last year. Remember we talked about momentum coming from last season, what it would look like, how it would feel, and like, well, it's been a long enough break, and that was last season. Last season's different from this season, and we talked about scar tissue, we talked about personnel, and we talked about lost players, we talked about the players that came back. But this defense definitely has a lot of things working very well, and I feel like that change came at the end of that first bye week, right? The end of the first bye week, or at the first bye week, that's when we had the major player meeting. We talked about simplifying plays. We talked about coverages. We talked about communication. If you remember, that's when players were mic'd up in practice. I feel like Ron had a lot to do with that. Yeah, Napier, sure, but Ron had a lot to do with that as far as simplifying that defense, simplifying some of the signals that came in. And that's where I feel like this defense has been able to maintain. I thought you had some great points as far as what this defense did against Miami, what the D line did. To know that we had so many injuries, unfortunately, that has crippled us early, especially on that D line, to have some great young studs come in, like we talked about, McLeod, Mbachu, great bodies, they have great talent, but as far as the size and the ability that they had, which is why Miami ran over us a little bit there. Again, kind of to be expected, but from a technique standpoint and everything else, when you look at this defense, it has done so many things right to keep us in games,
Yep.
keep us in striking distance, right? When you look at the points allowed on LSU minus the pick six, hell, holding them scoreless in the second half.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
amazing. USF fumble after fumble, not literally, but by the offense, kept us in that game. You look at what happened with just recently at Miami, held Miami to 13 points with 6 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, 5 minutes left to go. Okay, the
Yep.
defense is doing any and everything they can. I think the only other thing that we should ask out of the defense is how do we score, right? Remember, as you sent me the the clip on Coach Spurrier, right?
Yes,
Well,
indeed.
defense is doing a heck of a job. We just need to figure out what else they can do, right, as far as scoring the football, because clearly it's not coming from the offensive side of the football.
Exactly.
So, so that is what it is. It's interesting to see what Ron has done because I know we were a little bit worried about what Ron's going to look like taking
Yeah,
over
yeah,
100%, right?
yeah.
And he's proved to silence a lot of critics. I get it. Again, he's not the energy guy. He's not the Energizer Bunny. He's not AA. He doesn't have that demeanor about him, but clearly he goes about his work. He's methodical. He plays chess a lot, right? Not checkers. Love to see what Ron's done. Love to see the identity of this defense and how they're playing. Obviously, if we can get a little bit more push off that front, that would be great. If the edges can do a little bit more edging, that would be
Hmm.
great. Get into the backfield. Outside of that, you can't disagree with the fact of what this defense has done, the points that they've allowed that basically kept us in games. Okay, and
100%.
within striking distance. That's the main thing. Okay, to that end, let's move over to the next point. Let's look at things that have gone wrong. B,
Yeah.
what do you have
Yeah.
on that side?
Things that have gone wrong. So defense has gone well, and pretty much everything else has gone wrong. Um, Obviously, most of the focus here going to be on the offense. I'll start there. On the opposite side, give some similar stats, right? Points per game, 22. That's 100th in the country. Yards per game, 328.3. That's 108th in the country. There are only 134 teams in FBS, by the way. Passing yards, 205.3. That one's a little better at 85th in the country. That mostly has to do with a couple of games, right? Certainly not this last one. Rushing yards per game, 123. That's 103rd in the country. That one's one that really jumps off the page at me when you look at, what this team is and what they should be capable, especially with Wrecking Ball back there and how he's been playing so far this season. It is a remarkably poor stat to see
Oh, yeah.
in terms of what we've done and just how we've approached things, right? What we've tried to do, how we've tried to do it, what plays have been called, so on and so forth. Not going to get into that whole diatribe, but the just really surprising stat there. When you look at this and how low that number is, especially with some of the yards per carry number that Ball has been putting out game in and game out, it just doesn't really make any sense, right? So again, things that have not done well. I'll also have to call out that our special teams issues have been there. Um, we had wrong personnel, of course, much ado about that. Obviously, some missed kicks early by Trey that shouldn't be forgotten. I don't want to put a lot of that on Trey, but it's still issues, right, that have happened. And I'm actually going to call out some punt coverages also. There've been a couple times where we did not get down in coverage the way that we should have, in my opinion. Usually Rocco is excellent at getting down there, and most of the time you see him, but a couple times he hasn't been, I guess I would say, where I think he should be in terms of that, and also, other players as well. And we've allowed a couple bigger punt returns than I think we should have based on coverage, just having proper coverage in terms of personnel being where they should be on that. So there's been a couple times when I've seen some issues there as well. So, special teams matter, right? And that's not something that should be overlooked here. Obviously, the star of the show in a bad way here is clearly the offense, right? We've talked about it ad nauseum on multiple different pods. Again, I'm not going to go too deep in the weeds here. This is a shorter reaction, so I'll keep it concise. But ultimately, I do think it's important to also, recognize that it hasn't been the only problem, maybe. Not that that's a good thing, but I do think, you have to recognize that there are other things that affect outcomes as well. So, yeah, I did see one other thing that I want to throw out there, and that was interesting in terms of looking at Lagway's last performance and air yards. We kind of alluded to this as far as downfield passing last time, but his air yards in that game were -7 in this last game. So, for completed passes. So that's absolutely crazy that his completed balls, right, had a combined air yards of -7 in that game. So that ought to tell you what's going on in terms of what he can or can't do. Now, a lot of that did have to do with the rush from Miami, certainly, and some of the coverages downfield. But nonetheless, that's the situation, and that's what we're working with. And if that's what your pass offense looks like, then clearly it is more than broken, right? And again, that falls on Napier. So, I don't know how many more points we can make about it, but I guess we're going to continue to have to, because he's still the coach, unfortunately. So that's what I got on things that have gone wrong. Napier still being the coach would be the final thing that has gone wrong, for the record. I'll throw that one in there at the end here. What do you got?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good points, B. Unfortunately, it's tough to listen to. I know it's tough to say, but at this point, we just got to call a spade a spade,
Yeah,
and that's all there is to it. Um, my struggle, as well as football teams, is definitely on the offensive side of the football. When you have the head ball coach saying things like, "If only the defense could score," and when you have the nation, basically, I get it. You have pundits, you have analysts, you have coaches, you have former coaches, you have former players, all with the narrative of, does he not realize how debilitating this offense is? I would hope. But as we've mentioned, he's going to fall on his sword, and he believes that there is a way through his process, because he is very process oriented, right? Whatever. Okay.
Yep.
The offensive side of the football continues to be an absolute labyrinth. We came into the season with such high hopes. We knew we had some great pieces on defense. We were so thrilled to see the weapons that we have on offense, in the wide receiver room, in the running back room, and not to mention, more importantly, what was returning on the offensive line. We know that quarterback is the most stressful position on the field, bar none. Get that. We understand that. But at the same time, if you have an offensive line that has experience, I've used the term a time or two or 10, scar tissue. If we know that that offensive line is coming back, and that offensive line, we've addressed deficiencies, and we have a rock, we have glue in the center in Jake Slaughter, the last thing you would think that we would be having an issue with, besides the overall offense, for me, is the offensive line. We've talked about the deficiencies, right, on the right side of the football. For whatever reason, this offensive line is not anchoring what we needed to anchor to for Lagway.
Yep.
DJ, for whatever reason, has regressed. We talked about Lagway 2.0, right? Lagway 2.0 and Napier 4.0. Wow, we've had the second revision and the fourth revision. This should be a really, really good revision. It's not. It's looked worse. Okay. We talked about Mertz, what happened back in the day. Mertz 1.0, Mertz 2.0. Mertz seemed very confused in that opening day game against Miami last year. Okay,
Hmm.
and yeah, he pulled it together, but for the whatever reason, remember Kyle Trask. Remember Kyle Trask first year it started. Remember his second year as a starter. It was night and day.
Yeah.
Trask 2.0 was night and day. But for whatever reason, Lagway 2.0 and Napier 4.0 equals zero point 0 because that's the amount of production it seems like we're getting from the offense, regardless of
Very
the fact.
nice. Very nice. I
We,
like that.
you got it. We're not getting the production that we need to from utilizing the weapons that we have at the wide receiver position. We're not getting as much production. I agree with you. The running stat. Oh my God, 123 yards of rushing. Really? That's it? We
Yeah.
should be at the 175, 180 mark easily,
Yeah.
easily,
Yeah.
and we're not. We have deficiencies on offense when it comes from, and everyone knows, well, it's not just about calling the plays, it's the rhythm, it's the tone in which you call the plays. I'm not even going to be great for touching special teams. I like what you did there. Great for touching that. But at the end of the day, the offensive side of the football, as far as what we're trying to do, it is so lackluster. I know people made comments about the Philadelphia Eagles offense being boring, right? The dink and the doink and running the football. I would take the Philadelphia Eagles offense right now because at least they're
Oh
winning
yeah.
games and they're scoring points.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Um, at the end of the day, the offensive line, again, I said this a couple pods ago, I'll say it again, egg on my face on this offensive line. Egg on my
Yeah.
face when it comes
Mine
to
too.
Lagway,
Mine too. Big
right?
time.
It's so hard to watch. It is agonizing to watch because you look at everything else that we have, you look at everything on the stat sheet, you look at everything else on the from a roster standpoint, and you go, this team is severely underachieving. And that's probably the best word I can use to sum up this offense. And that is my biggest thing that has gone wrong with this team this season. I'll just leave it to the offense. And at the end of the day, we can't get the ball because a lot of people want to say, well, this wide receiver doesn't run a good route. This wide receiver can't do this. Well, guess what? If we can't get them the football, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And if we can't get them the football, it starts with two positions, line and the quarterback.
Agreed.
End of story. End of
And
story.
and
All
and
right.
both have been bad. No, it's that's really well said. It's a good call
Yeah.
out.
Unfortunately, both have been bad. Both have
Yep.
been just severely underperformed. Right. And I hate to say it, but that might be the theme of this season:
It
underperforming.
might be. Might be.
Yeah. All right. So finally, our last point of the night, we would like to name our impact or standout player through the first four games. B, tell me what you got for our impact player.
Yeah, man. So shift this back to a little bit more of a positive narrative to finish up here.
Yes. Yes.
The negative stuff is just it's overwhelming, honestly. So all right, for me, this has to go to Miles Graham, which probably does not surprise many of you that are listening and know how high I am on this kid. A few quick stats: 24 tackles, 13 solo, two passes defended, and those are actual breakups. They weren't just defending the player. Three quarterback hurries and 2.5 tackles for loss. That's his stat line so far this season, which is solid. I wouldn't say it's overwhelmingly impressive from a stat line standpoint, but this has been more about what he's actually doing on the field. He's always where he should be. He fills the right gap every single time. He plays such smart football, and he's so athletic. His side to side quickness, his ability to get out and make plays or be in the right position to absorb a block so somebody else can make a play, right? Whatever the case might be, he is the definition to me of one playing as 11, right? Which this defense talks about all the time. I realize we're not the only defense that says that, but he really lives and breathes that from what you can see on film and on the field. He's absolutely the player I thought he could be right coming into the season based on what some of the stuff we saw last year in spurts and in spots when he did play, and he has absolutely brought that to fruition, frankly, and then some. Been absolutely outstanding, and for me, at least through the first 4 weeks, and frankly, I anticipate this to continue, but he's for sure my impact player. He is the reason this defense, not the sole reason, but a big reason why this defense has been as good as they are. Again, 1-11 is a big concept here, right? They all have to play well for this to work, and they have. But he is a huge part of that, and just been absolutely great. I mean, I don't know that I've really seen him make a mistake. I'm not saying he hasn't, but there's been nothing glaring on the film where you're like, oh, Miles missed that one. I haven't said that. Not once when I've gone back and watched this. Literally not once. He's been just phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal, and continues to be just a joy to watch on film. Really love it. That's my guy. Who you got?
So first of all, I can't knock that at all. It's a great pick. He was in my final two, and it's tough because I look at him and I look at the raw talent that Woods is, and like
Yeah,
he's come in, he's
yeah,
done some things, and but then right, well, what do? We look at stats, we look at the overall, and I get it. Some stats we don't record, right? It's hard to record a hurry and a hustle and coming off the edge and kind of some of the
yep,
schemes that Ron runs inside, right?
yep.
We saw some of those great schemes that led to the sack of Mr. Beck here this past weekend. But guess what, B? I got to give it up, man. I got to give it up. You're absolutely right. Miles Graham is definitely the impact guy. You had him for 24 total tackles, correct?
That's what I had. Yes.
Yeah, 24 total tackles, 13 solo, 11 assisted. Leads the team in tackles, right? Seven ahead of the second best, which is Jordan Castell. So that's that. Tied with Mr. George Gums, tackles for loss.
Nice.
2.5 tackles for loss. Tied with Devin Moore for pass breakups.
That's crazy. Tied with a corner for pass
Interesting.
breakups. Yeah, it's wild.
Exactly.
It's wild.
Exactly. Leads the teams in QB hurries. So I have it here at three.
Yep,
So
I have it three
either
as
way,
well. Yep, yep, yep.
awesome. So either way, regardless of what the stats say, the eye test. What we talk about so much on the offense, right? The eye test. Guess what? Miles Graham passes the eye test time and time again. And I was worried about Miles because when he came in, if you remember, he had a minor procedure done on his back. He
Yep,
did have surgery,
yep.
but that was a lingering injury that came over from high school. So that was what it was. But he has proven to be an absolute staple and anchor for this defense. I see him a lot of times at the line of scrimmage, pointing at guys, making sure they're lined up in the right way, so on and so forth. Kind of what Shamar did for us a few years back.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, a great example of that. So, absolutely, Miles, you are the impact player through our first four games. So proud of you. See what you've done. What you at such a young guys. He just graduated
True
high school a
sophomore.
year ago,
Yeah, true
right?
sophomore.
True.
Yep.
So phenomenal, phenomenal things. So either way, to that end, great. Nice little agenda we had here. B enjoyed going through it. Just to let you
Yeah.
all know, we've got our next pod coming up here Monday the 29th on our regularly scheduled cadence. This one we're going to go over and the breakdown of list of coaches that could potentially be the next head coach here at the University of Florida. But outside of that, if you have any closing thoughts and you want to close us out, be my guest.
All right, we'll do. Yeah, so absolutely gonna look at potential coaching candidates here. We're gonna continue to hope that that we get a new coach. So we're gonna think optimistically on that. And just one thing, us picking the same player there, we do not talk about this stuff beforehand. We make mention of this periodically, but we do not
That's right.
discuss who we pick for these things. We just put the agenda together and then make our own points. So that was total chance that we happen to pick the same one. It happens more frequently than you'd think sometimes, but with that, we'll sign this off and look forward to seeing everybody back on Monday night to go over that coaching list. So with that, wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thanks for taking the time, and we will see you around Gator Nation.